Welcome to Creamer Media's Polity. I am Amy Witherden. I am meeting with Sipho Pityana, interim chairperson of the recently established Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, or Casac, to talk about the state of constitutionalism in South Africa. What brought about the launch of Casac?
Casac was established because we took the view that in the formative years of our democracy, the responsibility to take custodianship of the Constitution tended to rest with government and independent institutions established through government. And yet the Constitution itself envisages active citizenry, which is supreme and takes charge of the Constitution. That's the first principal concern. The second one is that in the recent period there have been developments that have given cause for concern in respect of the undermining and erosion of integrity, perhaps, of some of the institutions that are critical to our Constitution. For instance, the issues around the handling of the matter relating to one of the errant judges, how that was resolved, we felt that was less than transparent, and that if a trend like that continues, then the Judicial Services Commission, in its appointment of judges, needs to get a sense that the public attaches a great deal of importance in an independent judiciary, and therefore the process by which judges are appointed has itself to enjoy the credibility of the wider public. And secondly, the appointment of and some of the developments around the prosecution services. You must remember that prosecution services are a gateway to justice, and that to make an appointment of somebody who one of the statutory institutions of the Constitution, the Public Service Commission, has concluded, arising from a report that was released by a presidential commission of inquiry, that the person lacks integrity and that the appointment is proceeded with nonetheless, creates a sense of doubt as to, on the integrity of that critical institution. The other is the rampant and raging uncontrollable levels of corruption that undermine the ability of the state to render effective service to ordinary citizens of the country. And that has a very negative effect not only on communities but on business, because efficient, effective public service that has integrity is critical for the functioning of any state. So we're concerned about the fact that corruption seems to be running away with us, and that doesn't seem to be an effective system to curb it. And we're pleased that we're not the only ones who are concerned about that, but government itself is concerned. It's a matter of public debate generally. We're particularly concerned about the impact on social cohesion that the widening income gap and the deteriorating levels of poverty and marginalization that are afflicting our society, that these are foundations laid for instability and social crisis, which will make things difficult for all of us. And yet the Constitution places a great deal of importance in socio-economic rights, and in fact promises a future of dignity to ordinary citizens. So that's what has prompted all of this.
What actions will Casac take to advance the Constitution?
We'll take a number of actions. The first one is that we believe the Constitution, in fact, speaks to the people. The Constitution provides for a society and a country that is where the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and everything else is subordinate to that. Government is subordinate to the Constitution. What it does has to be within the framework of the Constitution. The Constitution accords us rights and responsibilities as citizens. And we're of the view that the first step is to ensure that people understand what the Constitution says, what it means, and how much it empowers them, and how much it speaks to their circumstances and their cause. And secondly, to understand how then they can use it as a weapon to advance their interests, to hold public officers to account, to create space for them to define and to determine their own destiny. And that's essentially what we're going to do. And we're also going to create a platform to collaborate with others to ensure that the goals and the principles of the Constitution are adhered to. And there are a lot of civil society organizations who will seek to work with government because this is a principal body charged by the Constitution to execute its vision. So government becomes a natural partner, but in some instances, as an independent body, we would vigorously raise critical questions and challenge government in certain instances where it becomes necessary. So we'll maintain an independent position, but we think that government is a critical institution. In the same vein, we'll have the same relationship with independent institutions that have been established by the Constitution. We want to partner with civil society structures because as citizens as well, we sometimes act in ways that betray the values of the Constitution. For instance, the developments around public sector strike, as an example I make all the time. It is an antithesis of the traditions of the South African trade union movement, which is a progressive force, to have workers walk away from people dying in their sick beds in pursuit of better wage. It's a myopic notion, and yet we have a constitution that places a great deal of importance to a right to life, to a right to health care, etc., etc. So we need to find a way to help civil society understand and locate the Constitution ahead of particular interest group interests, because that's the responsibility we carry. We have to make sure that we play our part to make sure that the Constitution is honored, so that the institutions can see from the examples that we take that we take the Constitution seriously. But the real issue around empowerment of ordinary people will probably rest in supporting their own efforts. Once they understand the Constitution, they will take up issues, for instance, about government that fails to deliver medicines to clinics, government that fails to deliver textbooks to schools, government that fails to do certain things that they are entitled to. They'll be able to organize and through class action take those to court. That's why we have as part of our program public interest litigation. We will assist communities with that because they need to have an infrastructure to pursue their rights and to secure their human dignity.
How can people get involved and take ownership of the Constitution?
The Constitution itself accords them rights, and that's how the Constitution charges them with the responsibility of a custodianship. And the way they should do that is to understand that the power relations between us as citizens and the state is that we are the people, we are the power, and therefore the state and the state institutions and the civil servants therein are in fact at our service. But the relationship that prevails currently tends to be perceived to be the other way around. And that's because people don't assert their rights. They don't feel that they have the resources to do it. They don't feel that they have the infrastructure to do it. We need to work in a way that helps change that relationship so that the citizenry is a lot more assertive. And I think that there are a number of examples where assertive citizenry has actually made gains. Were it not for the treatment action campaign and their very vigorous program of challenging government in respect of affording treatment to HIV and AIDS victims, the policy framework would not have changed. They used public pressure, they used public protests, and they used the courts. And the constitutional courts have taken decisions instructing government in favor of treatment action campaign. That's how citizens use the power that they have in the Constitution. We want to take the lessons that have been drawn from that to other scenarios.
How do you expect the ANC to react to Casac?
Well, the ANC has reacted positively so far to Casac. We've met with them as we have met with other political parties to introduce ourselves and indicate who we are, what we intend doing, and clearly make the point that we're an independent organization. We would want to work with government, but it must be clearly understood that from time to time we will differ with government, and so vigorously, including taking campaign actions, take government to court, etc., etc., would differ with the ANC on some of the issues, as we are differing with them on the proposed media tribunal issue, because it's an assault on free press. This is not to suggest that there aren't problems with regard to how the press conducts itself. Those can be dealt with without taking away the right to free press. We must deal with those issues, but you can't have a statutory body that is government-driven that oversees media, and that's a bad omen, and that we've seen that in a lot of other countries, and it's unacceptable that we should entertain that. So we'll join the broader South African populace in taking government to court if they took an ANC policy decision on the media tribunal in the way that is currently formed. But we think that there would probably be a need to create a platform to engage so that the parties find each other. We took a similar view with regard to protection of information legislation, which in many ways goes against the promotion of access to information legislation that was established in the early years of this government. Appreciate what Minister Cwele was saying earlier on in reviewing the inputs to Parliament, that we could have handled this matter differently, and that's exactly where we're coming in as Casac, that we would want to facilitate a conversation long before you get to a stage of a bill that goes to Parliament. If you've got legislation that's likely to have a major bearing on the Constitution, better still, let's have a conversation behind closed doors and have an open conversation at a later stage, sensitized to what possible impact this legislation, what proposed legislation might have on the Constitution, so that there's a public debate and not an adversarial confrontation. And that's how we started in government. We're an inclusive government. That's how the Constitution was brought about. There was broad participation. This Constitution is a constitution of all South Africans, from all the political parties, from all interest groups. The legal framework that develops therefrom must elaborate, reinforce, and promote the values of the Constitution. It mustn't deviate from it.